Hey guys, let's get more news from Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Relief spelled. Which Arthur Smith are the Steelers getting? Is it the under-center/12 personnel play-action offensive coordinator we saw in Tennessee? Or the pistol formation head coach who couldn't seem to figure out how to use his weapons in Atlanta? I will stay in my happy zone and say they will resemble the 2019 and 2020 Titans. In those two seasons, Ryan Tannehill had passer ratings of 117.5 and 106.5. Derrick Henry rushed for 1,540 and 2,027 yards in those seasons. Tannehill was putting up the best passer rating in the NFL off play action. With Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, that style best fits the Steelers. With this hire, there's a chance of returning to an identity central to winning 6 championships and being a consistent contender. Fans who are unhappy believe it's a step back to an outdated brand of football. Blowhard media types will even try to convince fans of it. But outdated offenses do not average 30.7 points a game for a season like the Titans did in 2020. Even though they had Henry and A.J. Brown, the rest of the skill talent was average at best. Scoring that many points a game is an achievement with any quarterback, let alone a journeyman such as Tannehill. The Steelers should be able to score and keep their defense off the field. In other words, Arthur Smith was the best option to ignite that balance. I am relieved the Steelers didn't hire some of the options still out there or hired by other teams. I won't go into the names out of respect for those individuals. Just say I would not have been happy with any offensive coordinators hired by other teams this offseason. They're too pass-happy. If there's some disappointment, it's that the Steelers didn't turn over every stone and interview Detroit Lions assistants. And I wonder if Dan Campbell's inability to see the value of retaking a 17-point lead midway through the third quarter of the NFC title game cost the Steelers to turn over the stones of Clint Kubiak and Brian Griese, the most exciting options out there, in my opinion. Kenny Pickett needs a system that simplifies his reads while he grows. Watching what I have of the Smith-coordinated Titans teams, it looks as close to an offense with the run game identity, under-center play-action chunk plays, and a shotgun on third down and 2-minute drills as any offense in football. That's not outdated. That's smart football. No offense in the NFL gets targets running wide open more than Kyle Shanahan's offense. But the flaw of his offense is not having power backs to close out games. It's a significant reason why his teams have blown large leads in the playoffs. Anyone who watched the NFC title game should realize that the under-center downhill run game can still win championships. The 49ers could not stop David Montgomery from getting downhill. Only the Lions stopped themselves from winning that game and possibly the Super Bowl. They looked like the most complete of the 4 teams remaining, when they never forced the 49ers to stop Montgomery, first, going away from Montgomery at the goal line at the end of the half and then later abandoning him while up 14 on a third-quarter drive in which they inexplicably passed on a 46-yard field goal attempt. The fact that Montgomery finished with only 15 carries, for 93 yards of consistency, is criminal. Did Steelers guide Mike Tomlin's hand toward Arthur Smith? The Pittsburgh Steelers took care of one of their biggest hurdles this offseason by hiring Arthur Smith as their new offensive coordinator. That is filling the vacancy, at least. Whether he is successful in the job remains to be seen. Whenever a big decision has to be made, though, there is always a debate about who is in control. Strictly speaking, the answer is owner Art Rooney too, but we're also concerned with delegation of responsibility. Rooney spoke this week and laid everything at Tomlin's feet regarding hiring the offensive coordinator, which ended up being Arthur Smith. It would be a mistake for me to try to screw up the lines of authority, he said. Which is certainly an interesting choice of words, given that he has the authority. Previously, Tomlin said in his end-of-season press conference that the decision would be collective. He named Rooney and general manager Omar Khan along with himself as the decision-makers involved. But what role did they play in this process? Is that the image that they want to promote? Rooney doesn't want the perception of an interventionist owner. Yet we hear that he is more involved than the public knows. As for Khan, his strength never lay in personnel and scouting. And for that matter, Rooney isn't a nuts and bolts football guy either. Not like his father. Tomlin is easily the most qualified within that brain trust to make such a decision. But that doesn't mean they can't guide him in some way. The Steelers' 2023 season has been put out of its misery, ending as so many have before in recent years, a disappointing, blowout playoff loss. The only change-up lately is when they miss the playoffs altogether. But with the Buffalo Bills stamping them out in the wild-card round, they have another long offseason to look forward to. The Steelers are swirling with more questions this offseason than usual, frankly, though the major free agent list is less substantial than usual. It's just a matter of, what happens next? Where do they go from here? How do they find the way forward? Free agency target: should the Steelers sign a quarterback? A recent article from Pro Football Focus, where they named potential landing spots for some of the top quarterbacks and receivers in this offseason's free agency class, saw the Steelers named as a possible suitor for Jacoby Brissett. Brissett once again played good football in 2023 after a strong underrated 2022 campaign in the first 11 games for the Cleveland Browns, breaking through in Week 15 and earning a PFF grade of 92.0 with 124 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in just 10 pass attempts. PFF writes about Brissett. It was a shame that Brissett was injured in Week 16, as it looked like he might have been a starter the rest of the way in Washington. Brissett, a former third-round pick out of NC State, began his career with the Patriots in 2016 and served as a starter in 2 games while Tom Brady was serving a suspension. This was before he was traded the following offseason. Since then, he has continued to prove himself as a capable backup signal caller. Since leaving Foxborough in 2017, Brissett has served as the starting quarterback in 46 of his 76 games, while playing for 4 teams. His most recent stint came with the Washington Commanders, where he made 3 appearances last season as a backup to former 5th-round signal caller Sam Howell, who was benched twice due to poor performance. It was in these relief efforts that Brissett showed his worth, as he nearly led the Commanders to comeback victories in Weeks 14 and 15 against the Los Angeles Rams and New York Jets, respectively. After Brissett completed 78.3% of his passes for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns in those near comeback efforts, he was named by then-coach Ron Rivera as the Commanders' new starting quarterback for their Week 16 game against the San Francisco 49ers. However, as happened in New England, an injury sidelined Brissett, ending his season and, potentially, his time in Washington. At the very least, Brissett could be a mentor to whoever the Steelers' next quarterback is, or even a bridge option until they feel a successor is ready to replace him. And you fan, what do you think of the Jacoby Brissett situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.